All right, get ready because we're going deep on all the news coming out of Kenya.
Yeah, it looks like we've got a lot to cover today.
Definitely a lot from Kenyans.co.ke, Taifa Leo, and Nairobi Wire.
Oh, even Gafla. Kenya and Capital FM are in the mix, too.
It's going to be interesting to see what we find.
What really stands out to me is the variety of topics.
Oh, for sure.
Everything from politics and health
To finance.
and some pretty inspiring stories.
Yeah, and it seems like most of the buzz is coming from President Ruto's State of the Nation address.
That definitely seems to be the catalyst for a lot of this discussion.
Definitely. But it goes beyond just the usual political stuff, right?
Right.
We got some big economic news.
Uh-huh.
A canceled deal with a billionaire, Gautam Adani,
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
and even some concerns about a weird chemical that's killing cows.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you want to hear about that.
Taking a step back and looking at the big picture,
Yeah.
it feels like Kenya is at a crossroads.
Interesting.
There are definitely some worries about things like corruption,
Of course.
the economy,
Yeah.
and social justice issues.
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, you can see signs of progress.
Yeah.
And this amazing resilience that Kenyans are known for.
Well, let's dive into the details then.
Sounds good.
What were the key takeaways from President Ruto's speech?
Okay, so Ruto made a lot of points, but some really stood out,
Okay.
like his strong commitment to fighting corruption.
So, like, really doubling down on those campaign promises.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Interesting.
He even called out specific institutions for not doing enough.
Really?
Yeah, and he specifically criticized the delay in the conflict of interest bill.
Which aims to hold public officials accountable, right?
Exactly.
Makes sense?
He also directed the Treasury to finally implement the e-procurement system.
Which has been in development for a while now.
Right, so this could be a huge step towards more transparency in government.
And less opportunity for shady deals.
Yeah, exactly.
What about those concerns over illegal arrests and disappearances? Did he say anything about that?
He did.
Okay, good.
He emphasized the need for accountability
Yeah.
and due process.
Hopefully that will be reassuring to some people.
Yeah, and he used some really strong language saying, quote, "Every life matters."
Wow.
There is no justification for extrajudicial killings, abductions, or enforced disappearances.
That's a pretty powerful statement.
It is.
Did he touch on any other social issues?
He actually went into detail about raising boys to respect women.
Interesting.
He really urged society to look at how we raise young men and directly connected it to violence against women.
That's a pretty interesting perspective.
It is.
Did he have any, good news to share as well?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. He was really positive about Kenya's food security.
Oh, that's a good tier.
He pointed to strong national food reserves and successful government programs.
So things are looking good on that front.
So far, so good.
Okay, and a lot of people have been waiting for updates on the new health insurance.
All right.
What's the latest on that? So Ruto announced that the Social Health Insurance Fund,
SHA.
will be paying all those outstanding claims from October by next week.
That's good news.
Definitely a relief for a lot of people who've been frustrated with how the rollout's been going.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, now, let's talk about this Adani Group deal.
Okay.
What happened there?
Well, President Ruto just canceled those JKIA and Katrucko deals with the Adani Group.
Seriously?
Yeah.
But wasn't the government defending them, just recently?
Yeah, just a few days ago, they were publicly backing the Adani Group, even with all the concerns and legal challenges.
So what changed?
Well, now, Gautam Adani.
The chairman?
Yeah, he's facing fraud charges in the U.S.
Oh, wow.
He's accused of bribing government officials.
No way.
Yeah, with crazy amount of money, like $32 billion
Wow.
to win a solar power project.
That's wild. So this cancellation seems directly tied to those accusations then.
It definitely seems that way.
I can't believe how quickly things change.
I know, right? It'll be interesting to see what happens with those projects now.
Especially the JKI one.
Definitely.
It definitely throws a wrench into some of Kenya's infrastructure plans.
Yeah,
This whole situation just adds another layer of complexity to their economic landscape.
totally.
And speaking of the economic landscape, how's the health sector looking beyond the SHA announcement?
It's a mixed bag, to be honest.
Oh,
Even though Ruto promised those timely payments,
yeah,
there are still some pretty big operational challenges with the new fund.
I see.
A lot of Kenyans are frustrated with how it's being implemented.
Yeah, I bet.
And we're actually seeing some healthcare providers threatening some pretty drastic measures.
Like what?
We're seeing private doctors in Mombasa
Okay.
threatening to close all their clinics within 14 days.
Wow.
if the county government doesn't address their concerns.
What are they concerned about?
They're claiming that the government's taking some unlawful actions,
I see.
although the details aren't totally clear yet.
That sounds serious.
It does.
It definitely sounds like the healthcare system there is going through some growing pains.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
Okay, now what about the political landscape? Anything interesting happening there?
Definitely.
Cool.
There's some real intrigue brewing with the former deputy president,
Okay.
Rigathi Gachagua.
Right.
He's making some pretty wild claims.
Like what?
He's saying that the government's monitoring him,
What?
keeping tabs on his movements and visitors.
You're kidding. Is he suggesting that he's being targeted?
He hasn't explicitly said that,
Right.
but his language is definitely suggestive.
Okay.
He actually stated that, quote, security agents in unmarked cars
No.
are tailing him.
That's a serious accusation.
It is.
And a little scary, to be honest.
Yeah, and he even mentioned extrajudicial killings, abductions, and enforced disappearances by state agencies.
So he's really playing up the fear factor.
He is.
What's the context here? Like, why is he saying this?
Well, remember that he was recently removed from office.
Right.
And there have been reports of a potential purge against his allies in the government.
Oh, I see.
So his statement could be a way of escalating those tensions between him and the current administration.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like he's trying to put them on the defensive.
Okay, this is getting interesting.
It is.
But before we get too deep into that,
Okay.
I want to hear about some of those other economic and social developments you mentioned.
Right.
What else is going on?
Well, there was a big standoff
Yeah.
between the national government and the counties.
Over revenue, right?
Yeah, but it looks like that's finally been resolved.
Oh, good.
They've allocated K-Shesh $387 billion to the counties.
That's a relief.
Definitely.
And what about that story about the toxic meat? You got to tell me more about that.
Oh, yeah, that's a strange one.
I know, right?
Authorities in Nyandarua
Okay.
are warning people to be careful about the meat they're eating.
What? Why? What's wrong with it?
They're saying it could be contaminated.
Contaminated how?
Well, apparently, cattle thieves have been using some kind of dangerous chemical
Really?
to subdue the animals before stealing them. The problem is the chemical can also be fatal to the cows.
Oh, no.
So there's this real fear that this tainted meat is entering the food supply.
Oh, gosh, that's a scary thought.
It really adds a whole new layer to the cattle rustling problem.
Definitely.
And on a completely different note,
Okay.
National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula
Okay.
made a pretty bold request to the Chinese government.
I'm intrigued. What is it?
He asked them to send 5 million tourists to Kenya.
5 million. Wow.
Whether it happens or not, who knows? It's quite a goal.
It is.
I guess it can't hurt to ask, right?
Right.
So we've got corruption, health concerns, economic uncertainty.
Yeah.
You mentioned some inspiring personal stories before.
I did?
Did any of those really stick out to you?
There's one that's really incredible.
Tell me.
It's about a young entrepreneur, Hamisi Jumaganda.
Okay.
He started making shoes.
Shoes?
Yeah, but out of recycled tires.
Wow.
When he was just a kid.
What?
He was tired of walking to school barefoot.
Oh, wow.
And he's turned that childhood struggle into a real business.
That's incredible.
He even got training from an organization called Somo Africa
That's awesome.
to help him develop his business skills.
What a great story.
It is.
Really shows the resilience and creativity of the Kenyan people.
For sure.
So what does all of this tell us about Kenya right now?
I think it shows that Kenya is at this really crucial point.
Yeah.
There are a lot of big questions hanging in the air
Uh-huh.
about corruption,
Right.
leadership,
Yeah.
economic stability.
Well, of course.
But what's also really clear
Yeah.
is the incredible spirit of the Kenyan people.
For sure.
Whether it's entrepreneurs like Gonda
Right.
or just everyday people navigating all these complex issues,
Yeah.
there's this real sense of hope and resilience.
Absolutely. So how do you think Kenya will address these challenges?
That's a good question.
And how will they harness all that potential for a brighter future?
That's something to think about.
Yeah, it is.
One thing's for sure, though.
What's that?
Kenya's story is far from over,
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
and it's going to be fascinating to see how it all unfolds.
All right, let's take a quick breather here and we'll be right back.
It really does feel like we're watching a high-stakes game play out.
Yeah, and every move has huge implications for Kenya's future.
Exactly.
And one of those moves seems to be this push for digitization and automation.
Oh, yeah, that definitely came up a few times in his address.
Like more than just mentioning it, right?
Right.
It seemed like he was really emphasizing it.
He was.
It's like a
really.
core strategy.
Yeah, he wants to see technology being used to make things better.
To improve efficiency.
Exactly.
And transparency.
Across the board.
Across the whole government.
Yep. He even specifically highlighted the Digital Health Act as a success.
Oh, yeah, that was a big one.
It was.
How's that been working, according to Ruto?
Well, he's saying it's been a game changer.
How so?
He says that digitizing and automating those processes
Okay.
has really helped to cut down on corruption.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also made things more efficient. They eliminated a lot of the waste.
Yeah.
And that's helped to ensure that resources are being used more effectively.
Right.
He even credited it with the SHA being able to make those October payments.
Oh, interesting.
So he's making the case that technology can play a big part in improving things across the board.
For the whole government.
Yeah.
So healthcare is one example.
Right.
What about other areas?
Well, he gave the Treasury a really firm deadline
Okay.
to fully implement the e-procurement system.
The end of the first quarter next year, right?
Exactly.
So they have to get it done.
Yeah, he even said that only procurements made through the system would be authorized after that.
So no more paper trails and backroom deals.
He's serious about modernizing the government.
Sounds like it.
And that's a good thing in theory.
Yeah.
But we also have to remember that technology is just a tool, right?
For sure.
It all depends on how it's used.
It's not a magic solution on its own.
Right, exactly.
You need the right people, the right processes in place
For sure.
to make sure it's being used effectively.
And ethically.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to see him focusing so much on this digital transformation.
It is.
It's definitely a trend we're seeing in a lot of countries right now.
Okay, well, what about education? How's that sector doing?
It's facing its own set of challenges, unfortunately.
Like what?
Well, universities have been dealing with lecturer strikes,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
leaving students in limbo for weeks.
That's not good.
And there's been a lot of confusion and frustration around that new funding model.
The one for university students.
Yeah, and remember that court case?
Oh, yeah, the one that challenged the legality of that new model.
Right, the court actually ruled that it violated some laws.
Oh, wow.
So it's been suspended for now.
So now what?
Well, it creates a lot of uncertainty for students.
Especially those who rely on government support, right?
Yeah, especially those from low-income families.
That's a tough situation.
It is.
It sounds like there's some serious work to do in that sector.
Definitely. Education is so critical.
And it needs serious attention and investment.
If Kenya wants to achieve its goals,
Absolutely.
it needs to get its education system in order.
Okay, so we've talked about corruption, digitization, education.
Yeah.
We can't ignore the security situation.
Right, that's a big one.
There have been some worrying reports of illegal arrests and disappearances,
Yeah, that's definitely something that human rights groups have been talking about a lot.
especially given the context of those recent protests.
Right, the ones led by young people.
What are they saying exactly?
Well, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights,
Okay.
they reported some pretty shocking numbers.
Like what?
They said there were over 1,300 arbitrary arrests
Wow.
and over 600 injuries between June and November of this year.
That's a lot.
It is, and they also said that a significant number of people are still missing after allegedly being taken by security forces.
That's really disturbing.
It's a serious issue, and it needs to be addressed.
It sounds like there needs to be more accountability within the security forces.
For sure.
And a stronger commitment to protecting people's rights.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about the protests either, right?
No, Gachako's claims about being followed,
Right.
they raise concerns about the targeting of political opponents.
It creates this atmosphere of fear,
Exactly.
and it really undermines trust in the government.
And it really makes you question their commitment to upholding the law.
Exactly.
These issues need to be investigated transparently.
And anyone responsible needs to be held accountable.
Absolutely.
You know, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by all this.
I know what you mean.
All the challenges, the corruption, the economic struggles.
The social justice issues, the security concerns.
That's a lot.
It is. But it's also important to remember the positive development.
Oh, yeah.
They're things that offer hope.
The stories of resilience.
Exactly.
Like what?
Well, we've talked about the government's efforts to embrace technology,
Mm-hmm.
the success they're having with food security,
Yeah.
and of course, inspiring stories like Hamisi Jumagonda's.
It's not all doom and gloom.
No, not at all.
There are people working hard to create a better future.
And those stories are really important to hear.
Absolutely. They remind us that change is possible.
Even when it feels like there are so many obstacles.
Before we move on, I'm still really curious about that story with the chemical being used on cattle.
Oh, right. That's a weird one.
It is. What do we know about it so far?
Well, the authorities in Yandarua are still trying to figure out exactly what it is.
It's like a mystery.
Kind of.
A dangerous one.
Yeah, they're urging everyone to be really careful about where they're getting their meat from.
Especially if it's not from a trusted source.
Exactly. It's not just theft anymore. It's a public health issue.
It's a little scary, to be honest.
It is. It'll be interesting to see what the investigation uncovers.
And what about that story with the speaker's request for 5 million Chinese tourists?
Oh, yeah, that's an ambitious one.
What do you make of that?
Well, China's a huge market for tourism.
Yeah.
Attracting that many visitors could really boost Kenya's economy.
But there are also potential downsides, right?
There are, like environmental concerns,
Right.
the potential for cultural clashes,
Yeah.
and the risk of becoming too reliant on one market.
That's a tough one.
It is. It's a balancing act.
A lot of developing countries face that same dilemma,
Exactly.
trying to attract foreign investment, but also protecting their own
But
interests.
something Kenya will have to navigate carefully.
Okay, let's circle back to those illegal arrests and disappearances for a minute.
Okay.
President Ruto condemned them,
He did.
but some people might say his words ring a little hollow.
Given everything else that's going on?
Yeah, given Gachago's claims and the reports from human rights groups.
There's definitely a disconnect between his words and the reality for a lot of people.
It seems like actions speak louder than words in this case.
Definitely. There needs to be concrete action to back up those words
To restore trust in the government.
and to show a real commitment to the rule of law.
Otherwise, it's just lip service.
Exactly. It's a sensitive issue, and it needs to be handled carefully.
Okay, let's shift gears for a moment and focus on something a bit more positive.
Sounds good?
Let's talk about Hamisi Jumaganda again.
The entrepreneur making shoes from recycled tires.
Yeah, what an inspiring story.
It really is.
It shows the incredible resilience of the Kenyan people.
And their creativity,
Starting a business is never easy.
especially when you're facing economic hardship.
But he's managed to not only create a business,
But a sustainable one.
that's using recycled materials.
And providing affordable footwear.
It's really impressive.
It shows what's possible.
It gives me hope.
Me too.
It's a good reminder that even in the midst of all these challenges,
Yeah.
there are people out there making a difference.
Making a positive impact.
Okay, now I want to touch on those developments in the health sector.
Oh, right.
There's been a lot of talk about that new health insurance scheme.
The SHA.
What's the latest?
Well, it's been a bumpy road so far.
Oh,
A lot of people are
but
frustrated.
the rollout?
Yeah, there's confusion, delays, difficulty accessing services.
And those doctors in Mombasa who are threatening to close their clinics.
It seems like there are some kinks that need to be worked out
And they need to be addressed quickly.
because access to healthcare is essential.
Any disruptions can have serious consequences.
Absolutely.
There was another story that caught my eye.
Okay.
The one about the Kenyatta University vice chancellor
Oh, yeah. The one who was grilled over those financial irregularities.
and the unfair hiring practices.
It seems like Kenyatta University is facing its own problems.
What's going on there?
Well, members of parliament are questioning the vice chancellor
Over what?
over allegations of financial mismanagement and biased hiring.
So, corruption and favoritism.
Yeah.
And wasn't there another university that was having problems too?
Oh, yeah. Moy University.
What's going on there?
They're struggling financial.
Like, really struggling.
Declining enrollment, unpaid salaries, growing debt.
It sounds like higher education in Kenya is facing some systemic challenges.
It does. It makes you wonder about the bigger picture.
The governance and sustainability of these institutions.
It's concerning.
Even prestigious institutions aren't immune to these problems.
No, they're not.
It really highlights the need for more transparency and accountability.
Across the board.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny.
Uh,
With all the twists and turns in Kenya's news, it sometimes feels like we're watching a thriller.
it does, doesn't it?
But even with all the challenges,
Yeah.
there are those glimmers of hope.
And those stories of resilience,
They remind us of the strength of the Kenyan people.
their determination, their creativity, their spirit.
It's what makes their story so compelling.
Absolutely.
It's a nation that never stands still,
Always evolving
facing its challenges head on.
and striving for a better future.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, we're going to take another quick break here.
All right.
And when we come back, we'll wrap up our deep dive with some final thoughts. All right, we're back and ready to wrap up our look at the news from Kenya.
It really does feel like we've been on a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, we've covered everything from politics and economics.
To health and education.
Even that crazy story about the chemical being used on cattle.
It's been a lot to take in.
It has, but if there's one thing that's really stood out to me,
What's that?
It's this growing demand for accountability.
Oh, yeah, I see that too.
It seems to be connecting a lot of the stories we've been discussing.
The Adani Group, the illegal arrests, the university finances,
People are really demanding transparency.
and they're holding those in power responsible.
We saw it with the public outcry over those canceled Adani deals.
And the calls for investigations into the disappearances.
Even those parliament hearings with the university officials.
It feels like Kenya's reached a turning point.
Like people are saying, enough is enough.
They're demanding a system that works for them.
That's fair.
That Adani deal is a perfect example.
Oh, totally.
Like government defending those contracts at first
Even with all the warning signs.
really makes you question their priorities.
It does.
Like, were they prioritizing quick wins over doing things the right way?
It's a cautionary tale for sure.
It
It's
is.
about the dangers of cutting corners.
And the importance of vetting investors carefully.
Making sure they're aligned with Kenya's values.
Absolutely.
And we can't forget about Gachagua's allegations either.
No, those are serious.
The idea that he's being followed.
And those reports of disappearances,
It paints a pretty disturbing picture.
it does.
Makes you worry about potential abuses of power.
And the erosion of democratic principles
There needs to be a thorough investigation.
to get to the bottom of it all.
And to make sure people's rights are protected.
It's a reminder that justice and accountability are ongoing processes.
It's a constant struggle.
To uphold those ideals.
But amidst all these challenges,
Yeah.
we've also seen some incredible examples of resilience.
Oh, absolutely.
Stories of hope.
Hamisi Jumaganda.
Turning recycled tires into shoes.
What a story.
It's a testament to the ingenuity and spirit of the Kenyan people.
It really is.
It shows that even small initiatives can make a difference.
They can create jobs,
Foster innovation.
address social needs.
It's inspiring.
It is.
So where do you think Kenya goes from here?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It feels like they're at a crossroads.
The nation facing some really complex issues.
But also full of potential.
And a desire for something better.
The path ahead won't be easy.
But the fact that these issues are being discussed openly,
Yeah,
that's a positive sign.
it is.
It shows that people are engaged
They care.
and they're demanding better from their leaders.
As we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
that's what we want to leave you with.
Okay.
A sense of hope. A
Like-
call to action.
To keep learning, keep questioning.
To stay engaged.
Kenya's story is far from over.
And we'll be here to watch it unfold with you.
Thanks for joining us.
We'll see you next time.